The Commerce Commission, which is studying consumer protections as we head towards switching off copper and into fibre. And this is what Chorus is doing. They want us to do this because the copper network is more costly for Chorus to maintain. And so from about 2020, Chorus wants to shift remaining copper consumers to fibre. And the legislation has changed to make that actually happen. And there's all sorts of things that the Commerce Commission is worried about, whether it's going to end up costing people, whether we're going to end up losing a 111 service, what's going to happen to those people who, you know, don't want to go for fibre or are having difficulties going to fibre or can't go to fibre or, you know, don't want to do their computer work over fibre, therefore the fibre's not in, then they can't put the phones in. And I have to say, over the news, an awful lot of people got in touch with me, saying we are jumping into this too quickly, getting rid of the copper, going to fibre. Okay, so here we go. Let me just read some correspondence. A majority of existing home alarms with dial-up facility will not function over fibre without costly modification. Who's going to pay for that? Why should I pay for it? It works. Text, considering the government paid to have fibre installed, why do the telco companies charge so much? I think the charges are too expensive by far. I've had the fibre installed, and guess what? Now my internet's slower. I can't face talking to Spark again after all the hassle getting it installed. I have an email that I've received from Jorst. He's sent me photographs outside our property. Chorus forced us off the copper, but could not put in the fibre since last year and refused to dig a trench, so we were put on Wi-Fi. Still have an order for fibre, and Chorus just refuses to activate it. Meetings for days on end in the street discussing the fibre, and all I can get to understand is that Chorus installed the fibre under the power cables, and that is not permitted. Last hour, of course, we got a phone call, Upper Hutt. They dug the trench themselves. They've been waiting 4 months for the installation. It's driving them insane. This is the number to phone. G'day, John.
Yes, I own a house on Great Barrier Island. And some years ago, I don't know, probably millions putting in underground copper wires. Now, next thing I find, I get a letter when I'm over there saying that I've got to pick up these phones and swap them over, and it's going to be the satellite. And I thought, no, I'm not doing that, because it means I have to unplug these phones every time I come home, bring them back to Auckland to keep them charged up. Mm. And so anyway, after a lot of jumping up and down... And
hold on, John. Let me keep up with you here. So you're over on Great Barrier Island. What, you're on generator power over there, or no power at all?
Well, I use solar power.
Solar power. And that doesn't charge up the satellite phones.
Yeah. And the thing is I have to leave it going, because I turn everything off, because I'm not there probably sometimes for 2 months. And it means I've got to leave my power turned on so these phones are charged up or bring them home. And I thought, well, I'm not doing that. The other phone works perfectly well on the copper wires, so that's the way it's going to stay. So after a lot of arm waving and jumping up and down, they had to put it back the way it was. And they didn't like it.
No. But the copper, they spent heaps making sure the copper was there, it's there, it works, and then they've actually ideologically decided, no, you're going to go on to satellite now.
That's right. They actually, what they did, they actually changed it some years ago. They had telegraph poles and copper wires going around the place. Well, they got rid of all those and put them underground. God knows how many millions it cost, but they did it. And now they've decided in their stupidity that, you can now go onto the satellite. And I thought, no, I'm not doing that. And so they were sort of forced grudgingly to put it back the way it was. How long it will last like that, I don't know. But at the moment, I'm winning the battle. And as far as I'm concerned, these idiots that dream these ideas up, that's the trouble with a lot of today's technology. It's rushed ahead of what it can actually deliver.
Yeah.
And I know this with my computer here. There's always something that some idiot wants to change on your computer. And I said, no, leave it alone. It's working perfectly well. When the day comes where I'm not allowed to have it and I've got to change, I'll change. But other than that, just leave it as it is.
Yep.
And they don't like it.
No, they don't like it. Change is constant, and in fact, that is the mantra. And apparently, if you're not changing, then it's no good. But at the same time, there's some of us, who go, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It will break. We will fix it. We will all be on fibre one day. One day we will put as much fibre all over this country as we did with copper. But we've already invested in all that copper, so why not? Now, I'm getting some... Thank you so much for your call, John. Now, here's a theory for you why Chorus is in some God almighty rush to actually get rid of all the copper and turn you over to fibre, whether you like it or not. I've had an email through, and someone is saying that... Chorus wants to sell the copper overseas because there's a good price for the copper right now and use that to fund change. So they're doing it just because they can seed the money. 0800 801080 is the number to phone. Hello, Carol.
Hi, Andrew. Look, I'm a baby boomer and computer literate to a certain extent, and I'm concerned about all these three issues, being the fibre, the closure of the Kiwi Bank and the post shops, and what one of your other callers alluded to, the way that Spark is going to have to be communicated with in the future. But first and foremost, the fibre, I actually think this is probably, and this ties in with what your comment was a moment ago about selling the copper overseas. I think that Chorus has got themselves into some sort of financial difficulty here, being that they purchased the rights to maintain these lines. Yep. And I think they overestimated the take-up of the fibre, because I know what happened here with us. We're down a long driveway, and we weren't the least bit interested in putting in fibre because we didn't pay for it. And then after a while, Chorus decided that they would pick up the cost to lay the fibre down to homes down long driveways, because in my mind, clearly they weren't getting the uptake. Now, I'm in an enclave of 5 townhouses, and we did have the fibre laid to the front door of all the townhouses. Not one of us has taken up the fibre. I, like you, have no problems with what I've already got. I want to be able to have a landline in the case of some sort of emergency of type. And also there's aesthetics involved in terms of all the equipment that goes into the fibre. But equally, I was also talking with a Chorus technician who said that a lot of there was a lot of problems with staff leaving Chorus. They weren't being treated well, and a lot of them, because as you know, they operate in teams, and a lot of them are Indian teams and other nationalities as well. They were upping sticks and moving to Australia. But also, like what you said, I think everything is moving too fast, and evidence of that is by, in Australia, they have the NBN, the National Broadband Network, and that's in a lot of trouble over there. And I think if you look at some of these other changes, what with the closing of the Kiwi Bank and the post shops, is that everybody... If you rush to do these things, now all these decades later, we actually are resurrecting them. And by that I mean things like tram lines, which used to be here and were buried and they're gone, they'll never be back. And now they're coming back to them. So we have to slow down. And the people do have a lot of power. And I don't know what Grey Power are doing, but they should certainly be jumping on this quickly. We shouldn't be forced into these things too quickly because, as you say, there's so many people who are complaining that they haven't got a good connection or their broadband is slower. So I think we do need to slow down. And also, too, there's a huge group of baby boomers here and now and coming through, and a lot of them aren't computer literate, but also the numbers are growing, and they don't want to have to contact through this new technology. So I think we just have to slow down on all these fronts.
All right, Carol, well said. Absolutely, and you're bang on. And in fact, I know why. Take a look at your Chorus crews and take a look, and you think, are these guys making a lot of money doing this job, highly technical job, etc.? Here's a text for you. It's not that it's happening too fast. It's that between Chorus and the government, there's too much penny pinching. And as Carol rightly said, I think Chorus maybe have bitten off more than they can chew. Anyway, so my text said, to my knowledge, Chorus contractors are paid on a flat rate system. This is where it all goes wrong. Taking on the difficult jobs doesn't net more pay, even if it takes twice as long. So if they've got to dig a big old trench all the way up your huge old driveway, but they're getting the same amount of money, they ain't going to do it. You're getting 4-month, 5-month delays. What needs to be done, according to my texter, is 3 instrumental things. All new homes required to be completely connected before they're finished, from road to home. That's going to add more in terms of construction costs and time, isn't it? But there we go. Realistic time framing for new connections to old homes. The silent treatment is half the issue here. It's too hard, and so they're just not telling us. And thirdly, pay the contractors a dynamic fair rate of pay so there's a reason to do complex or faraway jobs. My texter believes the pay rate at the moment for chorus contractors is like this. I'd sooner work at Pack and Save than install fibre because I'd likely make more. And yet here we have the Commerce Commission talking about the big changeover in 2020 and how to do it. NewstalkZB, g'day Rob.
Okay, Andrew. It's just this changeover. They've already pulled a paging system out, and what I found was I lost all my voicemail as well. And the business that I operate, for me to be able to leave the business and go into town to get extra parts and bits and pieces, I've got an alarm system on my business that is wired to my burglar alarm, that if something goes pear-shaped when I'm off-site, it rings my phone and I can come scuttling back to deal with it. And to absorb those costs, I'm a bit bitter and twisted about that. To say a lot, that's the way I feel about it anyway.
Yep. No, I understand that. I mean, change costs, and unfortunately, where things are tight, and sometimes you just don't want to change. For instance, I've got a very old phone, right? And we've all talked about this. My operating system is 933, and at the moment they're up to operating system 12,
Yep.
The problem with this, of course, is do I get a civil defence emergency alarm? Because no, I do not. It was not part of the operating system back then. Can I put a 12 on? No, I can't. My phone can't cope with it. And it would take up all the power, and yet my phone is working perfectly well. Do I want to spend $500 getting a new phone to replace the phone that's already working perfectly well, except for the fact I don't get a civil defence emergency call?
Really,
no, not at all. And this.
To reiterate, the relative of mine down in Canterbury, he obviously went through all the big shake-up and earthquakes on the copper system, on an old plug straight into the wall, none of this wireless walk-around hands-free phone, and he was still able to communicate, or they were,
Yep.
So...
Yeah. No, I remember that too. And I still have, copper and phones, old-fashioned phones, and it's there purely for emergency, because nobody phones it, other than call centres from overseas to tell me that there's something wrong with my computer, strangely enough. Patricia, hello.
Good afternoon. I'm complaining about changing the phones over. I am partially blind, and they say I've got to have it done. Well, I have the landline, and I've had an awful job getting this phone with big numbers, and I use a magnifying glass to help me. Yeah. And they tell me I've got to have my phone changed over. Well, I've got a memory phone by my bed. That would be useless. That would go. So what are they going to do to us old people? Yeah.
Well, look, I'm sure you could cope with change if they helped you through it in a nicer way.
Now, listen, I'll tell you something, my friend. A friend of mine has been nearly 3 months, and the phone is not going properly yet. I get, every time I ring her, she gets a box number. And then I can't get her or she can't get me. This has been going on for months. It's terrible.
Patricia.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I mean to say, I can't quite see, but I mean to say, if my memory phone goes, I've had it.
Yeah.
And they said that it would be no good. It wouldn't work. So I'm just not going to let them touch my phone.
Good on you. You stay true. 0800 80 10 80 is the number to phone. Thank you so much, Patricia. It's 2:28. If they're doing flat rate at Chorus and you've got all these, gangs of Indians and immigrants and all that sort of thing doing a job, and they get no more for the hard jobs or no less for the really easy jobs, etc., do you really think the customer service is going to be of any good whatsoever? Do you really think somebody from Chorus is going to come in and meet Patricia and actually help her reprogram a new memory phone and figure out a new system with the big buttons and the magnifying glass, so that she can stay in contact with the outside world? Do you really think that they've got the customer service down pat? Do you really think we're ready to actually change over from the wire to the fibre with a group of people like that?